We have two deputations this morning, both of which relate to item 14, the loan application Canterbury Cricket Trust. So item 5.1, Anne Dingwall and Lindsay Carswell speaking on behalf of the Civic Trust. So Lindsay and Anne, welcome to the table. Thank you for joining us. You have 10 minutes to make your deputation relating to the matters in item 14. And if you wanted to leave time for questions, you would need to do that within the 10 minutes. So thank you very much indeed.
Oh, good morning. Thank you for allowing the Christchurch Civic Trust to speak this morning. The Chair and Deputy Chair are unable to attend. The Trust acknowledges your message regarding scope. Nevertheless, the Trust would be remiss not to draw a significant procedural matter to the notice of the committee, which has not been drawn to the Council's attention previously and which is relevant to the loan application. Cricket has pressed the panic button yet again, this time at the 11th hour, requesting an interest-free council loan to the tune of $1.5 million towards floodlights at Hagley Oval. The Canterbury Cricket Trust must secure the requisite finance in order to confirm the provision of floodlights in time to host a leading role in the 2021 Women's Cricket World Cup. Yet the executive summary makes no mention of the risk to ratepayers in the event of default on the proposed council loan, which in any case requires unplanned borrowing by the council. The staff report raises more questions than it answers. The time frame and favourable recommendation place undue pressure on the Council's decision-making process. The staff report states that the Council granted a ground lease for floodlights on Hagley Oval on the 19th of December 2019. Is this committee aware that the Council is unable to lease part of Hagley Oval for the floodlights until all legal steps within the statutory scheme of that Act have been complied with and completed under the Reserves Act? The grant of a ground lease under the Reserves Act is valid only after the Council's exercise of the Minister's consent function delegated to territorial authorities. In this case, this has not occurred. The Council has not considered the exercise of the Minister's consent power. Thus, the Council effectively wears two hats because it is the administering body of Hagley Park and also delegate of the Minister. Having decided to grant the lease, the Council then had to decide as delegate of the Minister whether to consent to the grant of the lease. Furthermore, the consent power must be exercised by the full Council, not subdelegated, and is not a rubber stamping exercise according to the Supreme Court, which has set out the legal duties required. And they're there before you. At this time, the Canterbury Cricket Trust has no legal right to occupy the land in Hagley Oval on which it intends to construct and operate floodlights. Yet that trust is now requesting a loan from the Council to assist and further that intention, for which it has no lawful authority to undertake. Under the circumstances, the lease cannot serve as the basis for the loan application. Because the ground lease is not valid, the Council must consider the Trust's loan application on the basis that the Trust has no ground lease for the relevant land. The loan application supporting document is not publicly available, yet the staff report states that it contains additional information covering resource implications in the event of part or all of the loan being forgiven. The staff report states, staff believe the Trust will be in a position to repay the loan if the committee impose certain conditions. One of these conditions will be discussed in the public excluded session of the meeting, as it is commercially sensitive. And the report also states there is a risk that the two elements of the decision-making process that the committee are being asked to consider in the public excluded session will represent a lack of transparency. Clearly, not all of the significant conditions are to be disclosed for public scrutiny. Given that a charitable trust is requesting public funding, why is the supporting document and other relevant information not publicly available and subject to public scrutiny? The staff report states that the majority were in support during the Council's lease consultation. However, this is not reflected in pledges amounting to little more than 1/4 of the approximate cost stated in the report. Rather, the Trust has a record of reliance on grants and loans for capital projects, with the loans being written down. Liability for maintenance of the Hagley Oval Pavilion and fundraising for the redevelopment of the Sir Richard Hadley Sports Centre in Hagley Park are already placing significant demands on the Trust's finances. The total project value is approximately 4.25 million, according to the staff report. We have no published evidence as to the actual cost or the likelihood of cost overruns, requiring either further council funding or increasing the risk of loan default. In addition to requesting the council loan, the Cricket Trust has applied for a loan elsewhere for $500,000, a further liability for the trust. In the event that the Cricket Trust is unable to repay the council's loan secured against the trust's built assets, and given that the assets being on council land are far from saleable, would the council find itself in the unfortunate financial position of having to repay the loan with interest, owning the 6 floodlights, and burdened with all the consequent long-term operating and maintenance costs, all unplanned expenditure, and a further burden on Christchurch ratepayers. This would not be a positive in terms of the council's claims to rein in increases in council rates. The staff report states that part or all of the loan may need to be forgiven in the future, resulting in a write-down of the loan balance through a grant. It appears that the true nature of this proposal is a gift from ratepayers to cricket. As has been publicly announced, the Christchurch Civic Trust submitted a complaint to Parliament's Regulations Review Committee in respect of the December 2019 Hagley Oval Section 71 proposal decision. That committee accepted the Trust's complaint and is awaiting a response from the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet. Since the matter of ministerial approval of the 6 48.9 metre light poles is the subject of a parliamentary investigation, any related loan application must lie on the table until Parliament's decision is announced. This loan application has been assessed and supported by council staff. Given the council's 100% ownership of VBase Limited, the council-controlled trading organisation which exclusively manages the Hagley Pavilion and also provides event management services to international cricket events at the Oval, and given the involvement of VBase in the council in bidding to host top-tier matches during the 2021 Women's Cricket World Cup, the council is conflicted in respect of this loan application. Furthermore, given the staff report's identification of the potential need for council forgiveness of the loan, clearly this is not an arm's-length commercial loan, which should be required since the Trust's request is for public funds. Under the circumstances and in the interest of public confidence, the Civic Trust strongly recommends that this financial proposal be subject to an independent review to assess the short and long-term risks to the ratepayers of Christchurch, and that the Council refer the loan application under urgency to the Office of the Auditor-General for assessment, and no council decision is made to approve any loan to the Canterbury Cricket Trust for the purpose of providing floodlights at Hagley Oval until such time as the Office of the Auditor-General is satisfied that it's appropriate to do so. Not to do so would place the council at legal risk. The Christchurch Civic Trust recommends that the loan application from the Canterbury Cricket Trust lie on the table until Parliament's decision in respect of revoking the Gazette notice is known and the Council has received the assessment of the loan application from the Office of the Auditor-General.
All right, thank you. So that leaves 2 minutes if there are any questions. Sarah.
Thank you, and thank you for the thorough summary of your thoughts there. It seems to me that the two key things for you are, one, you don't think that Council's gone through enough process to allow the lights to be there in the first place.
Click of the camera, I just missed a bit.
Sorry, you don't think that the Council's gone through the right process to approve the lights, which would mean they wouldn't need the loan yet.
Well, it hasn't completed the process.
Yeah, so the one we haven't completed, your view is that we haven't completed the process and that there's a risk to ratepayers. If we were able to,
in relation to the loan.
yeah,
yes.
in regard to the loan, if we were to have guarantees on those processes, so if we were to do the subject to making sure that the process was finished, well, subject to them legally being allowed to do the lights in the first place, and subject to getting some sort of cast iron guarantee on the loan, would that satisfy?
No, because of the council's conflict of interest.
Okay.
There needs to be an independent review of this loan application.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Tim.
I think, Lindsay, in your documentation, you've got here that...
Who's speaking next?
Oh, okay. Right.
Let's make his deputy.
Okay.
Mine's separate.
All right, so are there any further questions on the deputation that we've just heard from the Civic Trust? All right, so Anne, thank you very much indeed for joining us. We will be considering this matter at or around 12 o'clock. And obviously the meeting is live streamed, so you'd be able to watch it that way if you wanted to do.
Oh, thanks for the heads up about the time.
Thank you.
That's helpful. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So that concludes the deputation from the Civic Trust. Now, Lindsay, you've now got 10 minutes to make a deputation in your own personal capacity. The same rules apply, 10 minutes, and if you wanted to allow time for questions, that would be within the 10-minute period. So
I think
thank
I'll
you very
only
much.
need 5 minutes, actually. I understand you've all got a copy of what I've sent through, and you've probably all read it already, but like opening your Chrissy presents before Christmas Day, but never mind. I'm just going to comment on a few points in the staff report, and I'll go over them. First of all, point 5.4 goes on about the fact that the Canterbury Cricket Trust is a charitable trust formed in 2007, and with a proven track record of fundraising. Then goes on to say in 2014 that the trust raised $10.5 million to establish the cricket pavilion. I've done quite a lot of research into where they got their money from, and the main people who gave funding there was mainly government agencies. There was Sport New Zealand, $2 million. Canterbury Earthquake Appeal Trust, $3 million. I'm going to come back shortly to some of these. And finally, both of those were loans, by the way. They weren't grants, they were straight out loans. They had to be repaid back. I'll come back to that, explain it later. But the Lotteries Commission also gave $2 million. And then there were a series of various pub charities who gave straight out donations, ranging from $1 million down to about $20,000. And that gave them sufficient income to complete the pavilion building. That was how they did the funding. There were no sausage sizzles outside Bunnings on a wet Saturday morning for Canterbury cricket. They weren't into that at all. 7.6, let's have a look at this point. The Trust has a proven track record of success in this area. And it goes on to say that the Trust has a significant income over the period, the last few years. I'd like to have a look at that, because if you have a look at their last financial report on the Charities Commission website, you go to details there for 2019 and 2018. Their total revenue, just over $1 million in 2019. Total expenses, almost $800,000. This gave them a net or a surplus $296,000, $299,000. But in that figure of revenue, there is a $600,000 write-off each year from the Canterbury Earthquake Appeal Trust. This is the last financial year they can use that. So once this year's gone, they won't have that figure of their total revenue will be $600,000 less. So their income figures will be showing a deficit. The Trust set up a Give a Little page, December 2014, to raise $1 million. To date, it has raised $3,306. Like, unbelievable. I've been involved in a lot of fundraising over the last few years, and I've never seen anything quite like that. You can have a look at it yourself. Perhaps somebody else has put some more money into it. $20 went in last weekend. That's 10 weeks they've had running for. The report then goes on, 7.8, the report then goes on to about repaying the loan. Come down to the part where I've got underlined. The risk that should the Trust not meet its obligations per the loan agreement, then part of or all of the loan may need to be forgiven in the future. Well, I'd like to put out to you that when they got their loan from Sport New Zealand, they were going to have to pay it back. They never did. They very quickly got back to Sport New Zealand and told them there's no way we can repay this loan. So it went to Cabinet. Treasury wrote a report and opposed it, but Cabinet decided no, we'll pay back Sport New Zealand. So Sport New Zealand wrote the loan off and Canterbury Cricket never had to pay it back. I've given you the two documents, one from Sport New Zealand. This took several months to get out of them. Had to go to the Ombudsman before they finally came back to me and said, well, yes, we can tell you. We did give them some money. And the second document is the one from Treasury, which outlines why Treasury opposed government repaying Sport New Zealand for the loan they gave to Canterbury Cricket Trust. In conclusion, my recommendation would be to decline the loan based on examination of the financial position, the fundraising ability, and the past performance in regard to loan repayments. That's my recommendation. However, if you decide to approve the loan, I strongly urge that the loan not be secured against the built assets of the trust. Instead, the loan should be secured by way of personal guarantees against the trustees of the Canterbury Cricket Trust. It's no good securing a loan on the assets that the trust owns. What are you going to do if you have to take back the lighting towers? What are you going to do with them? Sell them on tradesmen? Cut them up to scrap? Finally, I note that the 29th of August 2015 minutes show the following. This was also when the Canterbury Cricket got their first lease back in 2013. It was moved in the council that the Canterbury Cricket have advised that no further funds from the Christchurch City Council would be sought. That's what I want to say.
Thank you. So the penultimate paragraph in the written version that you've supplied to us strongly urge that the loan not be secured against the built assets of the trust. Instead, the loan should be secured by way of personal guarantees against the trustees. Is what you're really saying there that, you know, you've clearly stated that you don't believe that the security against the built assets is sufficient. There needs to be a more suitable, more watertight guarantee from somewhere. If we were able to achieve that from somewhere other than the trustees of the trust, that would be acceptable to you?
Other than the trustees?
Oh, I'm not sure. The real point here is, look, the assets they've got there on Hagley Oval, they effectively have a zero value as a security. You can't sell the pavilion building. And what are you going to do with lighting towers?
Thank you.
Once they're there, that's it.
Yeah, so the point's well made that the assets of the trust, the built assets of the trust, may not be sufficient security. No, that's all right, that's fine. Thank you. Are there any further questions? Leanne.
Just really a follow-up from that. So your key issue is that the security or indeed the guarantee cannot be on the assets. It must be in a way that guarantees no cost to the ratepayers of Christchurch.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yanni.
Thank you. I just wanted to just check if you're aware of how much ratepayer money has gone into the Hagley Oval since it was built, following on your last note where there was going to be no further funds from Christchurch City Council sought.
I'm unaware of the total amount of money that council has spent on the Oval.
Right.
It's never, a lot of it's been buried deep in the accounts and is unavailable for public comment.
Right. Okay. And you've made comment about V-Bays, and you've made comment about guaranteeing the assets in terms of the pavilion. Are you aware of the cost or are you aware of whether V-Base is subsidising the pavilion or whether they're making money from it in terms of an asset?
No. What I do know is that the agreement
Yeah.
that the Earthquake Appeal Trust gave to Canterbury Cricket Trust was that the pavilion building was to be used by community groups only.
I
Not-
question the
not to be used
relevance
for
of this
commercial.
question. We're talking about the building, whereas the matter that we're considering today is a loan for the lights.
Well, no, it's about the guarantee. Sorry, let me be clear. Mr. Carswell's raising concern about how we guarantee the loan across the asset.
Yep.
And I just, I think you were making the point that the building is a liability or...
Well, it's not a liability, it's an asset to Canterbury Cricket, but as far as the security is concerned, say for the council, or say a bank, for instance, they wouldn't accept that. It would be totally unacceptable because it can't be sold.
Right.
If they had to foreclose, what security have they got? What could they do for the pavilion?
All right, thank you. That brings us to the end of the time. But Lindsay, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to come along and present to us today. And just reiterating, we will be dealing with this item at or very shortly after 12 o'clock. Thank you.